Alright, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Anass. I'm a junior doctor working in the UK, and it's been a while since we did a little kind of short, slow chit-chat talk like this, especially now since I have been a doctor and I've been deep into it for about 6 months. So I thought, let's make a video on that. You know how we do those iPad reviews and MacBook reviews and desk setup review, all of that. Let's do a review of what it's like to be a doctor. And pretty much like every time I make a video like this, we always talk about the positives and what I like about it, but let's I don't know what you call it, spill the tea. Okay, no, not spill. Okay, it's not going to be like that, but let's talk a bit about the things that I wish I knew before deciding to become a doctor, or before I actually became a doctor. So we're going to mention three things I wish I knew before I became a doctor or before I graduated. So, the first thing I wish I knew before I became a doctor or before I graduated was that it is overall a very, very slow process and there is no need to rush. I feel like when you are in medical school, it feels to you as that is the majority of what the medical career is. Like, because you're in it and you hear that it's going to be 6 years, you feel like that's it. And then once you're done with medical school, then you're pretty much a fully fledged doctor and you're out there in the field and you've reached your final form. Yeah? You're not Super Saiyan 1, you're like Super Saiyan 5. But the truth of the matter is that medical school is only a very, very small part of that journey. And in fact, once it finishes, then you start a whole new long journey. I mean, let me give you an example. In order to become a surgeon, a consultant surgeon, you will go through year 1 and year 2 of F1, F2, so of foundation years training. Then after that, you probably will take year out. But if you decide to just go through it, you're going to go through core surgical training, and that's going to be 2 years. And then you're going to probably maybe do a PhD somewhere in between, which might be 2 to 3 years. And then after that, you might do a further 5 to 6 years of specialty training. And that's a total of 9 to 10 years. And even then, once you've become a consultant, you're a fairly junior consultant, you're new. And although you do have some experience as a registrar, you're not going to have as much experience as some of the other kind of senior consultants who've been doing that job for a very, very long time. So really, the process is slow, and in fact, it's all a process. To the end of your career, it's all just a long journey with no end. And remember, I've mentioned all of these steps: F1, F2, core surgical training, specialty training. At each step, you'll probably have some interviews, you'll have some research projects that you need to complete, you'll have audits and hoops that you need to jump through. So it's all a long process. And this is where a shift of mindset is important, really early on. And specifically, it's to enjoy the process and not really wait for a specific goal or a specific moment. Not to wait for the moment you become a consultant, not to wait for the moment you become a registrar. It's all a process that should be enjoyed. Enjoy the journey, enjoy each step, enjoy being a doctor every single day, instead of saying, okay, let me just get through this today and then I'll get to that tomorrow and then I'll get to this next year, and then, because otherwise you'll feel like your life is just flown by. And that's one thing I think I've learned from the past 6 months. So number 2, or the second thing I wish I knew before I became a doctor, and this is specifically before I graduated, is that your most important job as a junior doctor is to be the organizer. Okay, let's start with why you might think that your role is more as a clinician than it is as the organizer. You'll think that you're the clinician, your most important role is to have the most knowledge out of everyone, because when you're in medical school, that is the main focus. You learn about all of these niches and different medical conditions, different diseases, the disease process. You learn about which gene goes wrong for which medical condition. You learn about antibiotics and what they target in bacteria. You learn about complications of different diseases. So many things you learn in medical school. When you're a junior doctor, your job is to be the organizer of the team. Your job is to be the person who knows where all of the patients are in the hospital. Your job is to have a really nice list to go through. So before a ward round, to have a really clear list of what investigations your patients have gone through, what the results are, when they've come into hospital, what the plan was for them from yesterday. Having all of those things is what makes the life of the rest of the team easy, and your life easy, and ultimately and overall leads to the best patient care. And so I'm not saying that the clinical knowledge or the really niche knowledge isn't important. Your job is to be the organizer and then learn more about those things. The ultimate decision about patient care doesn't lie with the junior doctors, it lies with the senior members of the team. And the other thing is that really niche knowledge that you might have learned in medical school on its own doesn't really do much. It's the combination of that niche knowledge together with experience, together with clinical skills, together with the knowledge that you have of guidelines and protocols and things like that in the hospital. That is what leads to the management of the patient. It's not just which gene goes wrong in a disease that is key to treatment of patients. What makes a good junior doctor is a combination of organizational skills, clinical skills, and kind of interpersonal skills. That's what I've learned. But I thought it was probably the latter two before, but now actually organization now plays a much more important role in my day-to-day life, I think. I should probably also mention that where your clinical knowledge plays an important role is, for example, when you're on call and you're seeing a patient on your own. And even then, what's important is your initial assessment of the patient. How sick are they? Rather than specifically what is going on. Your understanding of how sick a patient is will ultimately lead to your decision about whether to escalate to a senior doctor or not. If you, for example, approach the bedside of a patient who you think is really unwell, you look at the vital signs, it doesn't look too great, you've taken some blood tests, you see that they are on quite a bit more oxygen now, you realize that, oh, okay, the abdomen is really tender, or actually it's rigid. Okay, that's when you know, okay, this needs to go to a senior doctor immediately. Or it might be that actually you've realized that this isn't super urgent, and so you still run it by your senior doctor because that's important, but it won't be as maybe your tone of voice on the phone won't be as urgent, for example. Yeah, so that's where clinical skills become really important. And so we get on to the third thing that I wish I knew before I became a doctor. And it's that being a doctor takes over your life if you let it take over your life. This is probably the only thing or the bit that I dislike the most about the career. And I don't think you really fully appreciate this when you are a medical student or when you're applying. Although like all the time, when you ask people, oh, what's it like to be a doctor? They tell you, it could take over your life and it takes an X amount of commitment and the working hours, and they say this, but then you're blinded by the dream of becoming a doctor, and so you kind of tend to ignore it. The other thing is, I don't think you can understand it until you've done it. The reason why I say that is because it's not just a 9-to-5 job. You have weekends that you have to work, on call, so evenings, nights. Even though I'm saying this is not ideal, they are truly important and they are key, because the hospital can't run without doctors being there, looking after the hospital on the weekends and the evenings and the nights. So it's not ideal, but it's important. And it's not just the working hours, by the way. Earlier on, we mentioned that the progression of being doctor is fairly slow. And in between, you do need to complete specific aspects that are important for your career. So research projects, audits, teaching, courses, all of these are key in order to progress through the career. And I'm afraid that a lot of these things need to be done in your own time. And so if you're having to do a lot of this in your own time, then it eats up from other interests that you might have outside the medical field. Or it might eat up into, family life, seeing your friends and travel and those aspects. But it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. You might fall into that pattern of only doing what's important for your career, or you can manage your time much more effectively and only choose to do things that are truly important to you. Remember that video we made about essentialism, right? That's key there. So I've kind of come to the conclusion that it's important to set aside non-negotiable time for your interests and for family life and for friends and for travel. And when I have that specific time set there, I mean, no one can eat into it. I don't care what's happening. I'm not compromising on that time, because otherwise it's very easy to fall into the pattern of you only go to work, and then while you're at work you're working, and then you go home, and while you're at home you're still working even though you're not supposed to be working, and then you want to go somewhere but then you're supposed to be working. So that's not a pattern I like at all, and it's not a pattern I want to fall into. So yeah, it's possible that it becomes your life if you let it. So that's the last thing. And right, so I hope that video helps whoever is watching this video. And if you like the video, then like the video and comment, like, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram. It should be somewhere up here as well, or in the description below. Safe.